Hey guys, Level Cap here, and I had such a good time playing the Battlefield 6 beta recently that when it ended, I really needed to fill that Battlefield hole with another great title. And with some of the debate around Battlefield 6's visuals not being quite as impressive potentially as some of the past titles, I wanted to remind myself of just how good this franchise has looked in the past. But what was Battlefield's visual high point? DICE is an impressive studio and they've made a lot of great looking games. Many would argue that Battlefield 1 had the best atmospherics and storytelling, which I think I would honestly agree with. But when it comes to pure visual spectacle, Battlefield 5 is the king in my books. It delivered some of the franchise's most breathtaking visuals. It had stunningly detailed environments down to the rubble and the interiors of buildings, and it wasn't afraid to display its graphics on an incredible scale either. From Rotterdam's ray-traced reflections to the volcanic hellscape of Iwo Jima, Battlefield 5 wasn't just a shooter, it was a showcase of DICE's technical prowess and artistry. These maps balanced historical authenticity with dynamic destruction, offering details that pulled you into the story of your location. Whether it was a ruined church casting colored light through shattered stained glass, or the idyllic snow-covered roofs seen in the Norwegian countryside. Now, sure, some of the cosmetics were on the goofier side. The launch of Battlefield 5 was beyond rough, with plenty of bugs and performance issues, and the gameplay balance took quite a while to refine. But when it all eventually clicked, sniping duels, tank battles across rolling farmland, or a devastating V1 rocket tearing through the sky, Battlefield 5 captured something truly unforgettable. It was far from the perfect Battlefield, but visually I hold it in the highest regard. Now, Rotterdam was the first map that I played in Battlefield 5, so it felt fitting to start my gameplay tour here. This map became one of the major showcases for Battlefield 5's new technology, featuring real-time ray tracing in a multiplayer environment. Now, at launch, it could barely run that ray tracing at a respectable frame rate, but on the hardware of today, it represents a gorgeous showcase. The dynamic weather leaves the streets of Rotterdam soaked, creating pools of reflection showing that ray tracing off. The rest of the shaders in the map are truly incredible, with the interior of this building known as the White House, which looks to be an incredibly accurate recreation of the real structure. Battlefield 5 in many ways feels like a time capsule as much as it does a video game. This is certainly one of the more impressive urban environments in the game, but Battlefield 5's countryside maps were just as, if not more, impressive. Narvik and Lofoten islands showcase beautiful mountainside vistas dotted with Norway's iconic, colorful wooden buildings. Panzerstorm, which came into the game later but quickly became one of my favorite maps, sets an epic vehicle battle on the plains of lush farmland. From a gameplay or layout perspective, it really is kind of just a series of giant fields, yet somehow DICE turned basic farmland into one of the more memorable combat locations for me. The scale is so well represented here, allowing players to gaze out for what seems like miles into the open battlefield. It's a very different feeling from just about any other map in the game, or any other Battlefield game for that matter. And I think that is one of the key things that makes Battlefield 5 feel different for me from a lot of the other games in the franchise. Each map has such an intense sense of presence and personality and character that not only feels authentic to the era, but truly embodies a sense of place. Battlefield 1 also does this incredibly well. I just think Battlefield 5 does it with even better graphics. Just look at this map, Devestation. During a developer interview, DICE revealed that it can take them over a year to work on creating a single map. And while they obviously make tons of maps in parallel, so they're not spending years making all the maps, when you look at a map like Devestation, you can absolutely see where that time goes. Every inch of this place feels like a historical record of a devastating battle. In real life, the German bombardment left the city of Rotterdam almost entirely leveled. The church featured at the center of the map was basically the only structure left standing after the assault was finished. So the remaining bombed out buildings make it feel like this map is set in a brief pause near the end of the bombing, where soldiers were sent in to fight amongst the ruins. And despite the environment not being interactive, the sheer scale of the destruction in this this map must have been a massive challenge to develop while still having more or less identifiable landmarks. The theater still has its seats and a running projector, where it could have otherwise just been another pile of rubble with some movie seats poking through the debris. One of the smaller details I didn't notice until working on this video is that the stained glass windows in the church actually cast these beautiful colors around the interior. Now moving on to one of Battlefield 5's heavy hitters, Iwo Jima works incredibly well as an approximation of what it might have felt like to actually storm the beaches of this island. Certainly it's a bite-sized version of the real location so that the pacing and flow of the combat is fun, but it does allow players to get a sense of the place. The map is designed, of course, to give the Japanese faction a massive advantage with bunkers, trenches, and a serious height advantage. Combining the masterful visuals with an incredibly treacherous map, it all comes together as one of the more intense and epic breakthrough experiences that the franchise has delivered. And visually, again, it feels like we're fighting in a completely different world compared to, say, a peaceful countryside or a devastated city. The distant views of the ocean and battles being fought in the background also set the island in the midst of a war that feels even bigger than the battle we're in. DICE has always done a really good job with set dressing, and Battlefield 5 absolutely delivers on that front. Now, when Battlefield 5 launched, it had very few iconic battles from World War II. Many of the conflicts shown off were smaller or lesser talked about when compared to the large-scale, decisive battles of the war. But many of these smaller maps that came from focusing on these lesser-known battles did actually end up becoming some of my favorite maps in the franchise. Maps like Arras, set during the early phases of World War II, or in isolated locations that saw less major conflict. At the start of these matches, these levels looked largely untouched by the war, with just hints of the conflict, like sandbags reinforcing emplacements or buildings, and over the course of the battle, the buildings get destroyed and reinforcements are built in and around the ruins. Replaying Battlefield 5 honestly made me feel a bit nostalgic for the construction system that it offered. It's not necessarily the most innovative idea, but it was neat to see maps change in ways beyond just tearing them apart. Sandbags and especially trench systems could be instrumental in pushing forward to a well-defended point. Now, across many of these maps, you'll also find small touches that tell a story, often about people quickly abandoning their homes or businesses. Fireplaces still have coals burning in them, with smoke billowing out of the chimneys. The roofs haven't had the latest snow cleared, allowing a grenade to dislodge that snow, making it fall in heavy sheets. On Lofoten Islands, there's an Easter egg of a recently caught shark hanging by a fishing dock. Battlefield 5 certainly had some interesting environments, but it very much lacked the iconic elements that you might expect from, say, Battlefield 1942. No D-Day beach landing, no Stalingrad battle, and yet it introduced me to locations and maps that have become some of my favorite. And one of the advantages that Battlefield 5 has over, say, Battlefield 6 is the ability to pull from so many films and photos and footage of the real-world locations and what it looked like during those battles. We have famous movies like Saving Private Ryan or the Band of Brothers series portraying World War II in a very iconic way, and Battlefield 5 can take that artistic style and pull from it. And perhaps that's why a lot of these locations feel significantly more real to me than many of the other games in the franchise. Standing back from it, so many of the maps in Battlefield 5 just have incredible spectacle and incredible details backed up by a really impressive graphics engine. Now that said, I'd be curious to hear your take on it. What Battlefield game do you think had the best visuals or made you feel like you were part of a more authentic battle experience? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and if you missed my first impressions video of the Battlefield 6 beta, check it out here. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.